Everybody, this is Pastor Michael at Ascension Lutheran Church in Torrance, California. It's time for another Midweek Boost. I want to talk to you about one of the more popular passages in Scripture. It's where Jesus walks on water. And in Matthew 14, it's not only Jesus who walks on the water, but Peter attempts to walk on water as well. It's after Jesus had fed the 5,000, he told the disciples to go across the Sea of Galilee in a boat and wait for him there. And he was going to hang back and pray. Well, after he's done praying, he decides to go across and meet the disciples on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. But he's not going by boat. He walks across the water. Well, as he's going, he realizes that the disciples have not made it to the other side. They're still fighting the wind and the waves. They've not gone past the middle of the lake yet. And so he heads towards them, and they see him coming, and they're afraid. They think it's some sort of ghost. Well, as Peter realizes that it just might be Jesus, he hollers out to him and says, "Jesus, if it's you, tell me to come and I will come." And so Jesus says, "It is I, come." And immediately Peter steps out of the boat and begins to walk on water. Well, the scriptures tell us that he notices the wind and the waves and begins to sink. And Jesus reaches out his hand to Peter and says, "Oh, Peter, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Well, this is a lesson for us in a lot of things. And I think first and foremost, it's about not doubting Jesus, trusting him. But there's a couple of other things that I'd like to point out to you. And it starts with how Peter is obedient when he's in the midst of faith. He says, "If it's you, ask me, and I'll obey." And so Jesus says, "It's me, come." And immediately Peter responds in obedience. Obedience, we see, is a fruit of faith. We cannot obey God and his commands unless it be in faith. We're told this by the author of Hebrews, that the only way to please God is through faith. The other thing I think I'd like to point out is how Peter is able to walk on the water at first. And yet he looks at the wind and the waves instead of looking at the fact that he's walking on water. How often do we miss the fact that God has got us through some amazing things in our life, and we sort of just chalk them up as coincidence or, happy accidents? I don't know. But we give very little credence to the fact that God is doing miracles in our life and truly is leading us and protecting us and making all things work together for our good. We need to understand that as we look back at our life, we have walked on water many, many times. And we need to see and give thanks. And instead of focusing on all that might happen, remember what has happened and how God has always been there for us, that Jesus has always done what he has promised to do and worked things out ultimately for our good. And we'll notice that we have been walking on water every day for all of our saved lives. That Jesus never lets us down. And the only times that we have ever sunk have been when we have forgotten him and mistrusted him But he was always there, wasn't he? To pull us back up. Just a few things that I wanted to point out about that very popular passage in Scripture. And I hope it really was a boost to you today. Have a great night.